Imagine you are in a room where the lights are warm, the air is calm, settled, and you can feel the presence of everyone listening with you. Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Journey podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we are not just talking about balance and peace as abstract ideals, we are going deeper to the architecture beneath them. Now, just imagine what are the struggles that we carry, let's say our guilt, our fears, even the patterns we keep repeating and we keep on judging ourselves aren't flaws to fix, but they are the signals waiting to be decoded. My guest listeners today, Reginald Martin, is the founder of Kametaphysics, a framework that bridges ancient Kemetic wisdom and modern psychology and symbolic science as well. His work through Paradoxical Heka, it invites us to look at paradox not as a contradiction, but as a doorway, a way to reconcile the fragmented parts of ourselves and step into sovereignty. So let's all sit together with openness, with curiosity, and ask what would it truly mean to live in coherence with ourselves, with others, and of course, with the cosmos around us. So, Reginald, welcome to the show. And as always, it is such an honor to have you here with us.
It's an honor for me to be here, Sana. And you put that and stated what Paradoxical Heka is about, and you set that up beautifully. So thank you for that. That means that you've been looking into this, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Reginald. And that's why I'm personally very curious to know, first of all, how we can identify these paradoxes and how sometimes we uh, feel that these are really contradictory. So to begin with, Reginald, uh, let's first try to understand metaphysics. Now, you describe it as the working at the identity layer, not just on surface behaviors. Now,
Yeah.
for someone like me or for our listeners who may not know, what does it really mean to go beyond behavior into identity?
So, and great question. So, and when we're talking about metaphysics, where that word comes from is just the ancient Egyptian word that means ka is called the ka, which is our word today for the soul or the life force of who we are. Okay. And then, of course, there is just the science of metaphysics. So what I did is just put those two words together. So we're talking about the soul and then the science of the soul. So 'cause metaphysics is about really tapping into your soul level experience. So, as individuals, we can have our identity locked into society. Okay, so we can take on all of the frameworks that society has given us over the years. Okay, whether it be religion, whether it be school, whether it be anything, we have an identity that's been handed down to us. When you operate within a certain framework or a certain identity, then you think a certain way, and that certain way causes you to interact with and create life a certain way. So, what metaphysics is the overall umbrella about being, okay, which I call this is the ancient science of ontology. So, who are you being? And from a modern perspective, we operate from the idea that we're broken. That's what a lot of the systems tell us today. We're broken. Something's wrong with us. We need fixing, whether it be psychology, religion, or anything. Well, from a metaphysics perspective, you are divine, and the divine is not broken. The divine is whole. The divine is all. The divine is perfect, and you are an extension of that. Now, can you get out of balance with the divine? Absolutely, positively. And then that's where paradoxical Heka can come in, and I can get a little bit more detail about that. But that's where it comes in helping you to balance with the divine. So you are beautifully whole, but you can be out of balance.
Wow. I think that's a very something that we usually do not get to know or get to or we are taught anywhere. And it's also a relief because so often we beat ourselves up not for being able to, fix a habit. We once again we bring that inner judgment within us that, I'm never gonna uh, get out get out of this habit, get out of this loop. When really we are dealing with a root system much deeper than the habit alone.
Yes. Yes, exactly. You stated that beautifully. And a lot of people do. They will look at ourselves in a negative way because we can't overcome the habit or beat the habit. But that in itself is part of the problem because we're defining an aspect of ourself as a problem. We're already creating our own adversary that we have to overcome. And paradoxical Heka is about helping you to no longer put yourself in a state of judgment, but a state of acceptance.
Hmm. Hmm. Of course, of course. And you mentioned that you would like to share more details about it. So please, Reginald, go ahead. It's your stage.
Yeah, so paradoxical Heka is really what I would call an ancient mental technology, and it's a spoken word. So, or it's not even really spoken, but it's about sound. But you can voice it in your mind. You can do either way, but it takes two opposing truths. Like even though I feel unworthy of love, my
Mhm.
essence is love. Okay, so those are two opposing truths. The truth that you believe that you're unworthy on some level, but the universal truth is that the essence of you, your soul, is love. It is created from love by love. Okay, and you speak to them together. So a paradox means is this and that. I know most people think of it as a contradiction, but
Yeah.
paradox means that it's this and that. It's both things at once. So the paradox creates a vibrational field where the nervous system and energy body reorganizes into harmony when you can actually hold both those truths in cohabitation, so to speak. So that's the power of the paradox is that you're not trying to overcome I'm unworthy of love. You're not trying to ignore it or speak affirmations that bypass it. You're literally helping it to helping integrate it into you, into the whole you, and recalibrating your vibration because of that.
Hmm. Hmm. That actually makes sense. It actually makes sense. I think that is kind of a symbolic meaning in there instead of the literal meaning.
Yeah, it's definitely in the ancients actually did put that into a symbolic way. So they actually were showing us a process. Okay. And are you
Mhm.
familiar with the caduceus? The like the medical symbol of the caduceus?
I'm afraid not, Reginald.
So do you probably hear
It's the-
I know here in the States we have the caduceus where we have the two serpents intertwined around a central
Oh, okay,
point.
that one. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah.
I just don't know the name, but I'm very much familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the caduceus, but that
Oh,
caduceus
okay.
is all goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. It's ancient, but the caduceus is actually symbolic of the process of paradoxical Heka, where you have the two serpents intertwining, and the two serpents represent our nervous system. And on another level, the pole that they're intertwining around represents our spine. So I'm sure you probably heard of the idea of Kundalini and stuff like that, but a lot
Yes.
of people just, yeah, they disconnect the ideas. They think that it's something, monumental, but it's our everyday nervous system and how we can actually reconcile a lot of the mental issues that we have. Like, for instance, again, going back to saying, even though I feel unworthy, that's one half of
Mhm.
the serpent. Okay.
Mhm.
And then my essence is love is the other serpent, but they're not fighting each other. If you look at the caduceus, they're not fighting each other. They're intertwined. Okay.
Yeah.
And when they're intertwined, that process means is that they're working with each other. in order to produce that enlightenment that you have, that enlightenment that comes with reconciling those two opposites, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does, Reginald. It does. It,
Yeah, so instead of the way we've been taught, Sana, is that we are to overcome our shadows, that we are
Mm.
to fight our shadows. We beat ourselves up because we can't get over the habit, stuff like that. But I want you
Mm.
to think about the shadow in another way, in another more healthy way that the ancients thought about the shadow. The shadow is actually our desires for change. Any desire that we have for change comes from the shadow. I don't care what it is. If we want to change something in our life, that's part of the shadow. That desire arises out of the shadow. So that shadow is actually the fuel or the impetus for our change. So instead of fighting it, like saying, even though I feel unworthy, instead of saying affirmations that bypass it, acknowledge it, honor that feeling, honor the feeling that even though I feel unworthy, I honor that. But I recognize as well that my essence is love. And when you do that, it actually reconciles that feeling, and then you produce the third feeling, which is inner peace.
oh, hmm. That's really powerful, Reginald. Really powerful. Um, so, now that we understand this, um, how how I can recognize this difference between a behavior that I can change and an identity pattern that I should really transform. Like, how are there any signs or any signals, maybe physical or metaphysical? What kind of?
Yeah, so anytime you're wanting to change something, there's some aspect of yourself that you want to change. Again, it just goes back to reconciling and understanding that when you're wanting to change, it's something that is arising from a shadow. It's something that is arising. The shadow is the impetus as to why you want to change. It's something that you might not like. Okay, but and you want to change it, so that the shadow and the desire to change are intertwined itself. Okay, so when you
Mhm.
change that shadow, when you change that mindset, when you change that belief, you automatically going to change the behavior that's attached to it. So you go to the root of the system, which is the energetic block, so to speak. You go to the
Mhm.
root, and once you alleviate that block, and then the energy is able to flow, then you won't even behave the same way. You'll stop. You'll stop behaving from a place of fear to a place of wholeness. And when you stop operating from that place of fear, that shadow, then your behavior is going to change behind it automatically.
Hmm. Oh, but it's gonna take its own time. It's not immediate, or is it?
Actually, it is. It can happen instantaneously. If you think about it, whenever we do finally make a change, it doesn't happen. It doesn't take years to make the change. We might wrestle with it for years,
Yeah.
but the change actually comes in an instant when we finally make the realization. When we finally make the realization, we changed at that moment and we never go back to what we were. That's instantaneous. That's our
Mm.
natural process. But what I've done with Paradoxical Heka is giving you steps and tools and processes to help you make that instantaneous change in minutes rather than you having to go through years of fighting yourself, beating yourself up, like we normally do. You Once you understand the process, your change is instant.
Yeah, that's really good and hopeful to know, Rajan. Really good and hopeful, because often, it's very kind of has been very. systematically induced that, to look out for quick fixes. And in the the process of that, we often kind of get lost or misdirected.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I agree with you.
yeah,
I agree with
very
you. And
important thing to know. Mhm.
yeah, and this is the thing I would say to that too, Sanas, and I agree with you that we shouldn't be looking at quick fixes, because even though the change can come in an instant, you got to understand that a lot of times there's a lot of energy built around what we had been wrestling with.
Yeah.
And so the way I like to express how this change can happen is that yes, you can have the change in an instant, but there are times when something has so much energy about around it that you end up going back to what you used to be. Okay. And this is why. And I like to use an analogy of if you've ever gone into a meadow, like a big meadow, and
Yeah.
you are the first one to go across that meadow. You know, you're going to see a little path where you've like mashed the grass down, and you can see
Yeah.
where you come and where you come from in that path. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you've gone on that path often, or a lot of people have gone on that path, then you're actually going to wear a hole into the grass, and you're going to have a trail into the path. Okay. Well, when you do paradoxical Heka, it's like you're going into that field for the first time, and you're pushing the grass down. But as you keep doing it, then you're going to wear a new path into your brain synapses, so to speak. And that new path can then stick. So it's not so, even though you can have the instantaneous change, the practice is going to make it stick. And you can do the practice daily. It's simple things that you can do daily that with paradoxical Heka.
So, so, that's wonderful to know, Reginald. And uh, now it's a bit of let's talk about sovereignty and success. Because you emphasize sovereignty over success. Now, that can be a bit, like a contradiction to what generally we all talk about or we all see and hear. People really, really value success. And yeah, it's a good thing. But I think let's also explore the other side here about sovereignty. Now, in a world where, right now we need money, we need careers, we need recognition, how does sovereignty actually translate into something practical, not just philosophical?
Great question. Great question. And this is where, because this is something that we all deal with, and I've dealt with it myself, Sana, is just the idea of abundance. So first of all, success is something that is I don't say it's the opposite of sovereignty. I say when you do become sovereign, then you are successful. Okay. But the deal is that the being sovereign means that you define your life for you by you. Okay. You
Yeah.
define your life for you by you, but it takes courage to live the definition. Now, when you are living your life for you and by you, you are successful, and you're going to automatically live on a level of peace that other people just don't know. Because so many times we're trying to live to other people's definitions of success, whether it be our family, whether it be, when you're on a job, there's certain things you're supposed to do. You know, we're usually the problem is that we'll put our ladder up on the wrong wall, so to speak, is our ladder to success. But when you create the building, when you create the foundation, then the sovereignty is about you becoming the own ruler of you, the master of you from within.
Hmm. Hmm. I, 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 I like that, because I also feel that it's not the opposite of success. It suggests that, just like, peace isn't the opposite of ambition, but then that foundation, it lets ambition breathe. It's like giving a right to things
Yeah.
and
It's
defined by
like
our
the way I look at that, I like to use an analogy with that, Sana, is that a lot of times we'll follow the rules of society. And the rules of society is a box that you live in. Okay. But
Mhm.
when you are sovereign, you build a foundation that you build on. You're not in somebody's box that limits you. You build a foundation that you can grow from and build on.
Mm.
That's sovereign.
Mm. Yeah. And have you seen any examples, Reginald, where sovereignty created more freedom? Of course, yours is one, and like even in business or leadership, than just chasing success.
And say it one more time. What an example of what now?
The example where sovereignty created more freedom, let's say in business or leadership, than just uh, chasing success alone.
Yeah, because I think a really easy one for that, Sana, is how sometimes we can be on a job, and because we have family, we have obligations, we have different things. We're on the job, but we hate it. Okay, and we're on the job because we're living by the rules of what society says. This, and I don't know if you've been there. I've been there. I've had the car, the house, all of that stuff. But
Yeah.
still not happy. Because I'm living what everybody else thought I was supposed to be, and I know others who have been in that same boat. Okay, but
Hmm.
when you're a sovereign, then you might do something different. And I know personally, I left the job and I started to create what I do now. Okay. People looked at me kind of funny, because I had a good job paying the bills and doing everything that was supposed to do, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied in that. How many of us have been in that place, you know? And how many of us have had the courage, when this is what I was saying earlier, you define your life for you by you, but you have to have the courage to live the definition, you know? So if you define your life for you by you, and the definition is not being on somebody's job, you'd rather be an entrepreneur, then you got to have the courage to step out and do that. And even in that context, that's where you're going to have to resolve some of your fears. And that's where paradoxical Heka can come in again, help you to resolve some of those fears that you deal with, because in a job, you punch a clock, you're going to get paid. As an entrepreneur, you don't know, you have to create something in order that people want to buy. And that can bring on a whole lot of doubts. Okay. But you're doing something that you love doing, and it's from a different place and a different space within you. That's success. That's being sovereign.
Mm, powerful, powerful. Okay. Now, um, you know, you say version of life is patterned, not random, but
Life is what now?
patterned, not random.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
um, isn't there freedom in randomness? Like, doesn't believing everything is patterned risk making people feel trapped in fate?
That if you look at it from that perspective, yes, but that's not how I look at it. Okay, so when I say a pattern, I mean that out of chaos, we can have we our beliefs is really what causes the patterns. Okay, so it's not a fatalistic type of an ideal where your fate is already designed and you can't deviate from that. So the universe out of chaos, which that's what the ancients would call it, but today we would just call it there's multiple possibilities. Okay, so we when we equate chaos to infinite possibilities, that's a different idea. Okay, so when there's infinite possibilities, then you have infinite ways that you can create something for yourself. You can create things on your term, and that's not living in somebody else's box where you say that. And I know that there might be systems or societies that say that I know in the old days It used to be if you were born into a certain family, then you were cast into that family and your fate was already designed. You couldn't rise up out of whatever that family did. Well, it's not like
Mhm.
that today, at least not in the States. Okay. So we're you have the ability to make yourself what you want and from what you desire. So out of randomness, out of chaos, out of possibilities, then you create the patterns. And that's where your intentions can actually focus the patterns that you want to create, your beliefs and your intentions. So that's a different way that from Kemetaphysics, this is about spiritual science and how the possibilities become reality.
Yeah. And uh, I think, and how do we hold both? Like these, the sense of patterns shaping us, and then the freedom to choose differently. It's
Yeah,
it's a
and
uh,
I I think that's a powerful question because that comes
yeah.
down to the paradox, really.
Yes,
You know,
yes, yes.
and in a sense, if you think about it, in order for us to even be here, we have to hold both. Okay, you are the possibility of the universe to become you. So you
Mhm.
came out of chaos. You came out of that randomness to be and become you. So you're already by definition, by design, you are the paradox that's expressed through the universe. Okay?
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
is the natural progression of consciousness really is to really to shape out of chaos and out of possibilities to shape it into something that we desire.
Yeah.
That's just the natural flow of the universe.
Correct, correct, correct. Um, uh, and I think that feels definitely like the heart of sovereignty, like understanding, recognizing the pattern, but then also realizing at the same time that we are not bound to repeat it forever. Like, there is no obligation that we are repeating it forever.
Yeah, and I think that that comes down to beliefs, Sana, because well, I know that that comes down to beliefs.
Mhm.
If your beliefs are that you're bound to it, then it is true. Okay, so that's the thing. That's the powerful thing to understand about beliefs is that they are how you filter your reality. Your beliefs create your reality. So two people can have the same exact experience but our same exact event can happen in front of them and they can experience it in two different ways based on how they believe the system based on what their beliefs are. So in that sense, reality is not objective, it's actually very subjective. And you can create your life and draw to you the things that you desire based on what you believe. And if you believe that you're limited by faith, by fate, then absolutely you're going to be limited and you will not see possibilities that can come from any other direction except what you believe that you're resigned to, if that makes sense.
Definitely does. Definitely does. 100%. 100%. And I really appreciate you clarifying this because uh, I think it definitely needs patience, clarity, and openness. Because sometimes we can be so like caged up in our belief systems that we do not want to open the gates for new thoughts or new
Yes.
ideas to come in.
Absolutely. And Sana, I'm here in the United States, I am within a culture. I was born within a culture that does think in those terms that fate is what it is, that we are resigned. Even some people believe we are cursed, you know, that to live the way that we live, in a lot of instances. So I came out of that belief system to become and do what I do now. So I am a living example that I am not I'm not resigned to the fate of my beliefs or what my culture believes. I can change and I can do something different. and that's what I did. So when I talk about that, I'm not speaking in theory. I'm speaking from personal experience, and I know others that have done the same as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what exactly uh gives the power, the conviction uh to actually connect with you know what you are saying. These are all not just mere scientific researches or observations, but yeah, it's powerful, Reginald. And before we wrap up, of course, I mean, now at some point of time, we always, not always, we sometimes we think that let's just go to therapy or coaching. Why to exert the something on ourselves? Let's just get it done through someone else. So, why are we bringing symbols, breath, or ancient science? Like, listeners would think that, this is complicating the process in here. What do you have to say on this?
As far as how symbols might impact us, or help me understand here a little bit better, Sana, what you're asking.
Yeah. Like how they are, yeah, how they are, this entire process of healing ourselves and becoming better versions. Because, that's there. So why to explore symbols or breath or ancient science?
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, beautiful question. That's deep. Hey, you got another hour? No, I'm not going to do that. So, oh, but but if you think about it, the way that the ancients looked at it, Sana, is that everything in this world that we live in is a symbol or an extension of a much greater reality. Okay, that what the ancient energetic metaphysical
Mm.
world is, our world came out of that and is a symbol of that. So when you talk about that, the our lives, our bodies, our language, it's all expressing this ancient or this metaphysical world in a form that we can grasp and understand. So everything, way that the ancient Egyptians looked at it, everything was a symbol, you know, no matter what.
Mhm.
So the symbols are, and that's why they even encoded knowledge, like in the Caduceus, they encoded knowledge
Uh-huh.
into these symbols, waiting for us to unpack. But a lot of times we get stuck in the dogmatic ways of thinking that society has dictated. And if you get stuck in that dogmatic way of thinking, then you don't feel like you have any control. And that's where you believe fate has more power than your faith.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think this will take another maybe podcast or a day long conversation discussion to explore. Very very interesting. But before
Yeah,
we wrap up,
we can go way deeper. We can go way deeper
yeah,
in a lot of
way
different
deeper.
directions.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, Reginald, what would you say to someone who feels skeptical, who wants, in their heart, they wish to get started, but their mind keep on saying this is too mystical to be practical. How they can start with it?
Yeah, and I understand that, because there's a lot of times of what I really don't like woo woo, and what I call woo woo spirituality is that it has no processes. It has no steps to take. It's just you're supposed to have faith in it or whatever. And I can't stomach that because I came from a religion that basically made me believe things that weren't true. Okay. So
Mm.
for the people who want to actually learn the science, then there is steps and processes behind what this is taught so that you're not having to just believe something. It's actually experiential. So that's what paradoxical Heka and Kametaphysics is built on, is experiential knowledge. You become the scientist of you. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you're skeptical, then I would say, uh, you know, try some of the things that I teach, and I already know from experience they work. You don't have to believe it; you will experience it. And paradoxical Heka and Kametaphysics is no different in that. So it's about processes, not just believing in something.
Wonderful. That's a bold answer. And that's a good way to start with an original if listeners. They would also like to connect with you to get some guidance into this and explore more about paradoxical Heka and Kametaphysics. What should be the easiest way?
Yeah, go to reginaldmartin.substack.com, and I actually have some downloads. One on paradoxical Heka, and another is how to tell the difference between woo-woo spirituality and practical spirituality. So if you go to reginaldmartin.substack.com, you'll see the headings, and you'll see where you can get those downloads. And I know that they will be helpful, especially for the people who are skeptical or the people who have been burned by spirituality, where they just got this woo woo stuff and nothing worked. So very helpful. I believe in tools. I believe in processes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes for all of your listeners. And um, Reginald, thank you so much because you have really, really, with so much conviction and power, you have really made us realize that ancient wisdom, it isn't buried in the past. Not all ancient wisdom is outdated. It is alive in how we breathe, how we live, how we speak, and how we choose.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Thank you. This was
You
really,
bet.
really
Thank you for
fun.
having me here. Thank you for having me here, son. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And to all my listeners out there, I really, really thank you for tuning in, giving your precious time to this episode on the mindful journey. And as we close, I just want to invite all of you to sit with what you have heard. Peace isn't about avoiding paradox, it's about learning to hold it. And sovereignty isn't about control, it is about remembering who you are beneath all the scripts, the fears, and the inherited voice. Until then, this is the mindful journey, and may you find balance not by escaping your contradictions, but by embracing them as the very place peace is born. Thank you.